Stand by.
Recording. On top.
On top of Kuf Nun Aleph. First line?
Yeah. We're talking about Shesha Milchama. Milchama refers to the Milchama with the Nefesh HaBahamis. And we said, how can there be a Milchama with the Nefesh HaBahamis, the Nefesh Elikis? The Nefesh Elikis provides the divine truth. And the answer is that divine truth itself, when it is represented in the Eretz Pnimim, on a functional level, its glitter, its beauty, and its richness is camouflaged. It's reduced, or it is focused on the functional level, and this is where the chitzonim, the klippos, have a claim. We also belong there. The word makif, which is always representative of the etzem of the source, there they have no access to. They are blinded by that oil, as we said. Because that oil does not have any functional aspect. But that oil is always representative of the etzem itself. We had many misholim for this, and we don't have to repeat it. And therefore, that oil is mesame in achitzonim. It blinds in achitzonim. That oil is overwhelms them, because in that oil you do not see the content as a standalone reality. Like we said many times, I'd like to repeat it because it's very rich. When you're walking in the dark, you identify every turn and every crack, because these are the guidelines by which you're following in order to get to your destination. But if there is daylight, you don't even notice that you're making a turn, or that there is an obstacle and you're bypassing it. You're not even relating to it. You go straight to your target, because that light tells you and it gives you the opportunity to actually relate to the entire reality. You're not hampered by the different contours and different obstacles. You don't even notice them. That's the oil makif. Therefore, the chitzonim have absolutely no means to identify themselves within this reality. Okay, so we'll start on the top line and go from the Allah at the end. This is a very important thing to understand. The similar thing is in nefesh. As you said many times, the nefesh ha'odom is Draminikid Museinu, is reflective of the godly reality. Second line, the be'eres makif in the nefesh, where it's a nefesh similarly, which means a nefesh also brings forth and reveals oires makifim of nefesh. When the nefesh represents itself on the makif level and in a makif manner. And how does that represent? How is that represented in the nefesh, in Aveda nefesh? The nifur makifim. The hainu, and that would be b'ho Aveda shelamaylo mitav adas. When the Aveda is above Tamadat Adom for reason and knowledge. Like we said before in the Moshe, he is focused on where he's going rather than how he gets there. And this is the Aveda from makifim from nefesh. You go straight to the target. There's no such thing, I'm not ready for it. Because he's always related to this makif, to this truth. I think I'm disconnected again, huh? Let me try again. Yeah.
Welcome to IDT Connect. Please enter your conference ID. Welcome to... Thank you. You are now entering the conference room. To exit the conference room, press ***. For help, press *9. Participant number 2.
Okay. This is called Aveda Shelamayla Mitavadas. Aveda that bypasses all the contours of the road, does not need to identify the various twists and turns because he sees that the direction in which he's going, it's straight. And he relates to it. So makif, he's there already. Like I said many times, you open your eyes and you look straight ahead. It could be 1,000 miles. And there are many different twists and turns on the road. And obstacles, you don't even notice them. And you go straight and see the entire reality. This is Aveda Shelamayla Mitavadas. This is oires makifim the nefesh. And therefore, at the end of the second line, Einoi shayach milchoma klal. There is no personage, no possibility of milchoma at all, because the chitzonim have no access, they cannot disrupt this view. They cannot interfere with this view. Like we said, even though you may be passing by various obstacles and various twists and turns, you don't even notice them because you're not guided by these obstacles. You're guided by a completely different view. Third line. Thus, when the aspect of what's called the ratzon pashut We're talking again in nefesh. Ratzon pashut. A ratzon that is not built up by the arguments of the seichel. But it's a ratzon pashut, a ratzon what's called simple, a ratzon that emanates directly from the nefesh. Let us discuss this a bit, or even more than a bit. It's important to get to know this ratzon. Let's take an extremely simple, down-to-earth illustration. You sit down to eat. Very common occupation. The food is presented to you in a very respectable manner. Every dish is identified individually. It's presented nice dishes with the proper settings. It's all very attractive, even at the look. And then you take a bite and it's very tasty. And it could be said that what actually guides this activity is these individual elements. It looks good. It is presented nicely. It is respectable. It is tasty. All of these things come into play in this activity. This is all mitzad the koches pnimi, where you recognize the various steps, various manners how you relate to this. What is ultimately the highest behind this whole activity? The chitzonim come to you and say, the reason you're eating is because it is tasty. And you come back and say, no, you misunderstand the whole phenomenon over here. I'm eating because the food is what keeps my nefesh in the group, because it allows me to live. And when I'm hungry, I cannot function properly. And then ultimately, you can't live without the supply of food. So the real perspective, the real spirit behind this eating is altogether something different. It is to stay alive and to be able to recognize the godly presence. That's what the eating is all about. This is the source, this is the spirit of this eating.
That's the ratzon pashut.
That's also pashut. So when one is aware of this ratzon pashut, his galus ratzon pashut, kol ha'chatzenim is batlim. It is stupid to say that I'm eating because it's tasty. It's a lie, and it is a stupidity. And the chitzonim, no matter how they come to you and start talking to you about the taste and the looks and so on, you left them off like they're coming from where you're coming from. That's what mizbatim kol ha'chitzonim. This is called ratzon pashut, because the principle that I want to live, because I want to be, because that's what I am. I want to live because life is the reality of the divine truth. This is not a come from the behind want, desire. This is what I'm made of. The divine presence, that is the only presence that I'm aware of. Like we said in our Moshel, the distant view, this is the only thing I'm aware of. The distant, the pure view, this is what I'm aware of. I'm not aware of anything else. The way Chochmah sees things. Okay, continue on the third line. V'zehu. And thus, this points to and explains the principle. Yom Kippurim.
Welcome to IDT Connect. Please enter your conference ID. Welcome to the... Thank you. You are now entering the conference room. To exit the conference room, press ***. For help, press *9. Participant number 2.
That on Yom Kippur. Ein Shlita HaYetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara has no Shlita, has no rulership. It has no line to stand, it has no power, has no access. Mipnei, because Sha'oz Meir, because then on Yom Kippur shines Milamailo, from above, Gilui Bechinas Atzmus Ein Sof. You are given a view and a perspective and a sight given milmaila. It's a gift milmaila, not because of your labor, because of your struggles, because of your effort, but it is something which is granted to you from above. Gilui, the revelation, the expression of Bechinas Atzmus Ein Sof, of the Bechina of Atzmus Ein Sof. Atzmus Ein Sof as it is from the Ein Sof perspective, not as is it identifiable within a worldly context. Within a worldly context, we say this rock leads here, this is a step for this, and this is a step for this. Everything has kind of a means by which you get it. But his Atzmus Ein Sof does not need a means to get there. It is there wherever you turn. And this is Yom Kippur. Meir comes to the full bloom, full view, the Bechina of Atzmus Ein Sof,
which corresponds to the ratzon pashut.
This is right. Ratzon pashut is the means by which you relate to this. Ukmoi kain, and likewise benefesh, in the nefesh. This is we went off a little bit talking about Yom Kippur. Going back to nefesh. Meir begilui atzmus ha-nefesh. Meir is represented begilui in total view, not through any kind of a means, but directly the atzmus ha-nefesh, the etzem of the nefesh. The reality of the nefesh itself. What is the nefesh stand for? What does the nefesh relate to? Nefesh relates to the holocaust from which that it appreciates, that it sees. Again, going back to our moshel, this would be very helpful. We said one time, and we discussed it one time, that in reality, what gives us a sense of truth, of reality, of the house on which we live, or the table at which we sit, or the street on which we walk. Ultimately, the reason that these things have such sense of reality is because prior to that, we recognize the entire reality, the unlimited reality. Going into the reality, into thousands of miles limitlessly, into the beauty of reality of itself. And this is part of that. This big reality is what provides for these little things. This is why these little things are so real. Because they're buttressed, so to speak. They're based on this bigger reality. Oh, this is the same what I saw in there.
If smaller things are buttressed by the higher picture, when does something really become chitzoni? Seemingly, all details and all approaches are derivative from one source.
Even though the Yetzer has no access, does not present a challenge to this to this truth, he's still there. And he still has his conniving means by which to crawl into your thought process. And he comes to you and he says, look, you're being naive. You just accept things the way they are. You don't judge them by your own intelligence. How stupid can you be? And if you pay attention to this argument, and it says, yeah, okay, you know what? I'm going to prove to you that what I saw is true. That's it. That's the end of your free ride.
So it's not the details per se, but it's the yeshus, or the evaluation and focus on them.
It's not the detail per se. It is that the details have validity on their own. In other words, please understand, I'm going from here to 770. The reason I get to 770 is because 770 has a proximity, is true from my vantage point from when I started. But one can come and say, no, you know how come you're on 770? Because you made this turn, and this turn, and this turn. This is how you got to 770. In other words, you take the worldly contours, and that becomes your reality.
Hmm.
The reason that 2 times 2 equals to 4 is because I can prove it, not because it's true.
Well, that's a tough mashal, because that's so empirical, and mathematics is empirical.
It is a tough mashal, but it's a very valid and important mashal.
Say it again. That 2 times 2 is 4 is because of what?
Because I can prove it.
That's the incorrect approach to mathematics.
Yes.
Rather, one should say what?
It is true because it is true. I find out through this proof. But that's how I find out in Seichel.
It's true because it's true, but what? I validate it by this proof.
I didn't validate it. I get to know it.
I get familiar with it. I get to know it.
Yeah, but once I know it, it is true in dynamically. I think it got disconnected again.
For a change.
Welcome to IDT Connect. Please enter your conference ID. Welcome. Thank you. You are now entering the conference room. To exit the conference room, press star star. For help, press star 9. Participant number 2.
Okay.
And the difference in those two approaches is the one retains its connection with the ultimate, and the other one becomes...
Not connection, it's part of the ultimate.
Yeah, and the other one goes off into a sort of body of human knowledge.
It is my discovery.
Uh-huh. And the first is it is God's truth.
Take the very simple Muslim mitzvah that we always say, like I just said. You walk from here to 770. The reason you get 770 is because here and 770 are connected directly. They're in the same reality. The fact that there are houses built up and streets and you have to go through, this is not what brings you to 770. This is not your connection to 770.
Right. But my knowledge that 6 times 7 is 42. There was the process of learning the 6 and 7 times table.
Uh-huh.
That's kind of unfortunate, or that's necessary?
No. It's not unfortunate, and it is not necessarily necessary. If you had a rapid thought process, you wouldn't need the times table. For example, 2 times 2, you don't need to learn from the times table. You know it by just looking at the question. Like in this room itself, you're standing by this door. How do you get to the omud or to the bima?
It's apparent.
You are connected to it already, not apparent.
Yeah, but 12 times 12, I don't think it's going to ever be really apparent. Unless you're some kind of math aficionado. It's like the J is the 10th letter of the ABC.
Just one second. There are 2 things about 12 times 12.
Yeah.
There is my knowing it, and there is it being. What happens in the secular world is my knowing it is what's emphasized.
Okay, which is not really a problem. One should.
It is a problem if that becomes the
main
basis of reality.
Right. Yeah, but the familiarity and the ability to manipulate these numbers is kind of appropriate. But
yes,
but the focus.
But you have to know where it's.
Yeah.
If you look in the Gemara, also you have to measure that the Tchum Shabbos and all that, and the 50 by 50, the size of a certain area. It's a completely different method. We never deviate from the reality in which we're dealing with.
We never deviate from the reality.
We take this shatter, we take this space, we cut it up in strips and put them together. We do not step away and we calculate it from a peripheral overview. Nothing to do with the question, with the reality. I'll show it to you. This is where the Chitzonim take you away from the fact that this is a divine creation, that this is a real world. Real world means there's a divine encompassment of this whole thing. This is what enables, in what correlates things together. The Zohar expresses it that only the Rebbe is who connects one end to the other end. He's the one who correlates things. The Chitzonim say, no, I can walk X number of steps and I'll get there. Okay. Baruch Hashem, I think we exposed this in